Hey guys, Bios and Ramos, and the day is finally here. The NFL schedule released. On top of that, you already know the Dolphins have their schedule coming out as well. And man, oh man, it looks interesting. Now, I got it here behind me. We're going to show that graphic every now and then throughout this video. But every team drops, almost every team. I wouldn't say every single team, but almost every team drops some type of video in relation to their schedule release. Sometimes they're skits. Sometimes, they are very highly produced animated graphics, which it seems like the Dolphins did. We're going to watch the whole thing together. I've just seen clips of it. But last year, the Dolphins' schedule release video was very subpar. They were going on the quote unquote being the fastest team in the NFL, so they had the shortest uh, schedule release video, and it was pretty nauseating. They just had all the text scrolling down like if it was a freaking Star Wars movie. Needless to say, we're gonna experience this whole video together, and yeah, let's tune into that. And now it's time.
We've carried it all. Good, but not great. Close, but still so far away. Confident, but never satisfied. But when you look inward, dig deeper than ever before. You learn that sometimes the tide doesn't turn on its own. You have to turn it.
Oh, that's sick.
We're done looking back. Now we charge forward. Forged by perfection, sharpened by adversity, bonded by purpose. Because no spirit can outlast the one that's building beneath the surface.
Alright, week one Colts. Man, this is too fast. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. The audio is pretty loud. This would not be good for someone who can suffer from seizures and stuff. Then the last game against the Patriots. Like we saw in that video, it was pretty cool. The animation, the design, it reminded me a lot of last year's Los Angeles Rams schedule release. They pretty much had something to do with almost each and every opponent, and it was almost a different animation every time. I think when it came to the Dolphins one, they were in like a lowrider or something like that. So it was going around all of Southern California, and it was pretty cool. But needless to say, I did not like how the presentation of the games were. That's just my critique. I did love everything else in between. I thought it was super cool having like those dolphins swimming through the water, looking like Hard Rock Stadium's underwater. And then they had a couple of guys, and they kind of looked, I would say, kind of like zombified in terms of like, not too much detail on them, but you saw their jersey numbers, you saw their eyes glowing. But aside from that, interesting release video. I think everything was cool up until they actually showed the schedule. But needless to say, let's talk about this schedule. Now, I find it rather interesting. Lots of stretches of football here that could go either way for the Miami Dolphins. Starting off week one at the Indianapolis Colts, followed by week two at the New England Patriots. Now, if you guys can tell by this graphic, I put a little key on the bottom right, and it says home is aqua, orange is away, the teal is the Madrid game, and then black is the bye week. Let's continue on. Week three, Thursday night football versus the Buffalo Bills. That is a road game. The last time the Dolphins will be playing at Old Highmark Stadium before the Bills move into their new stadium that they're almost completely done with. Let's move it forward to the following week at home. Monday Night Football versus the New York Jets. I'm probably expecting this to be the rivalry jersey game for the Dolphins. The Dolphins were one of 8 teams this season. All of the AFC East and all of the NFC West will be wearing specialized rivalry uniforms, and it will be coming in games against divisional rivals strictly. So No idea what the design is. I'm probably expecting something orange, but they could also, go off the beaten path and go all black, maybe by city. It's supposed to be like a City Connect type of uniform, like what they do in the NBA and now also in the MLB. Let's continue on. Another road game at Carolina in week 5. Week 6, back at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. Week 7, on the road against the Browns. Another road game against the Atlanta Falcons in week 8. Back to back home games on Thursday Night Football, week 9 against the Baltimore Ravens. Week 10, Buffalo Bills at home. So that's the other possible rivalries game. I wouldn't expect them to release it so early against in week 2 against the New England Patriots, but we'll see. Technically a home game, but this is the international game. Dolphins are playing in Madrid against the Washington Commanders in week 11. If you haven't seen it yet, check out my video talking specifically about that game. Pretty excited for that one, but then following that, they do have their bye week, which self-explanatory. You go on international games, you come back, that's more than likely going to be your bye week. Other teams don't do it all the time. Dolphins tend to be that team that will take the bye week after their international game, but it's also pretty late in the week. It looks like a normal bye week, which is pretty cool to see. Following that, week 13 hosts the New Orleans Saints at home. Back-to-back road games in week 14 at the New York Jets and week 15 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another primetime game, Monday Night Football. Then following that, back at home, week 16 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Week 17 at home versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then week 18 on the road at the New England Patriots. That's the only one that's TBD. Every one of these games who are not a primetime game or the international game will be a 1 o'clock kickoff. And then the coverage will vary between Fox and CBS. Now, with all that being said, there's a lot to divulge in here. All right? You start off the season in your first 4 weeks, you play each one of your divisional rivals. Now, the times you play them after that, pretty spread out, which I like. In years past, it's like you play them super early and you play them super late. Like, no. Like, this is a good spread of when you're playing the divisional rivals. Unfortunately, I don't like how early it is in those first 4 weeks. You play all 3 of your divisional rivals. So it will be interesting to see that. And I do like how it alternates road, home, road, home, road, home. And then back home against the Los Angeles Chargers. That's how the Dolphins season starts off. So, very balanced start to the season. Just a little heavy on the AFC East divisional rivals. And then on top of that, the Dolphins are playing the NFC North, which is regarded as a pretty tough division year in and year out. So, playing the Ravens and the Bengals at home, like that for us. Playing the Steelers and who it was the Browns on the road. I'm very interested in that Monday Night Football matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aside from that, we're also playing the NFC South, which consists of the Falcons, Saints, Buccaneers, and Commanders. Not the Commanders, my apologies. The Carolina Panthers. Those games, super hyped at the Tampa Bay ones here. And the New Orleans Saints, they're kind of scrambling for a quarterback after the Derek Carr news. Aside from that, let's see what other home games there are that I have not mentioned. Yep, that was pretty much it. The Chargers look interesting. That's one of our slotted games against other AFC divisional opponents who finished in second place like us last year. The other one, if I can see it here, is the Colts, which we opened the season off against. So, interesting way for this Dolphins team to have their schedule laid out. I'm not entirely sure how we can predict this early on before we even get to training camp. But I'm going to give you guys a quick prediction. All right, week 1 at the Colts. I think the Dolphins redeemed themselves with a healthy Tua because last time the Dolphins were in Indianapolis, it was very ugly, and it did not favor Miami. Oh, man. All right, continuing on. Week 2 at home versus the Patriots. I think that's going to be a bloodbath because I think the Patriots have improved mightily and they will be a contesting team. I think they will be contesting for the division at the end of the year, along with the Dolphins and possibly the Bills, and who knows, even the Jets maybe. We'll talk more about that later. But week 2, coin flip, give it to the Dolphins. They're at home. Week 3 at Buffalo. It's a put up or shut up game. If the Dolphins are legit and they're already 2-0 at this point, you got to go and get a win in Buffalo. But they probably don't. So I'll give Dolphins a loss here. But it's definitely one of those situations that you got to beat up your big brother at one point, and especially at their place. And I think this should be the time for them to do it, especially if they're already rolling in. They're 2-0. But another early Thursday night football game against the Buffalo Bills, similar to what they had last year. Then back-to-back primetime games. They come back home and face the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. I do think that's a win, but we don't know what this offense for the New York Jets is going to look like with Justin Fields at the helm. Last time the Dolphins played Justin Fields, he gave them a run for their money. Quite literally, he was running around all over Soldier Field. And me and my buddy Chris were there to watch it in person, and there's an awesome sound clip where Mike McDaniel was like, "Stop running! I need to find a way to stop you from running." So that's going to be interesting to see twice a year. Hopefully he contains himself and becomes a little bit more of a pocket passer. But continuing on, I think this is a win against the Carolina Panthers. Los Angeles Chargers at home. If that defensive line gets after Joe Burrow, especially with their addition of Joe Alt, then I like our chances. So right now, being a little bit of a homer here, but after 6 weeks, I see the Dolphins being 5-1, and if not at worst, 4-2. So not bad start for the Dolphins. Let's go on to Cleveland. I think that's a win. Falcons, I think that's a coin toss. So right now, I would give it to the Dolphins. Thursday night football against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar has not played well on Thursday night football in Miami specifically. So I would like to see the Dolphins get this win, but they also have Derrick Henry, and the Dolphins haven't played him with Derrick Henry. So I'm not 100% confident in the Dolphins run stopping. Let's see how first round pick Kenneth Grant, steps up to the plate and progresses. Hopefully by then he will be quite solidified as a run stopper. So screw it. We'll give the Dolphins a win here. Now, I do think they're going to split the season with the Buffalo Bills. So let's just chalk up this home one as a loss. Big time win on Thursday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens. Did not come into this game focused against the Buffalo Bills. They lose this one. So through the first 10 weeks, the Dolphins are 7-3. And then right before their bye week, they head to Madrid to play the Washington Commanders. Another toss-up type of game. And we're going to really know what this team's about. Now, I am projecting the Dolphins to be in 7-3 by this point. But we don't really know what this Dolphins team is going to be. There's a lot to be questioned about this team, and we'll talk about it more and more as I release more videos about like the free agency and stuff like that, and stuff about training camp. And we're going to have more questions and more answers to some of these questions, so we'll see. But by this point, we'll have a great idea of what this Dolphins team is really about. Now, I know in years past the Dolphins have not had a great record and gone on runs late in the year, but even then, kind of mediocre teams. And then in most recent history in 2023, phenomenal year, through and through. You had some ups and downs, definitely, but the Dolphins found ways to win games very much so often. So by this point in Washington, 7-3, maybe 6-5 at worst. 6-4 at worst. It's really a toss up here. Let's give the Dolphins a win internationally in Madrid heading into the bye week, being let's just continue on the winning side and say that they're 8-3 heading into the bye week. Play against the Saints, who by this point should have figured out their QB situation. Let's see, it could be up in the air at that point too. Who knows? But the Dolphins will be 8-3. I do think the Dolphins possibly lose on the road against the New York Jets, depending on the acceleration of the Jets' offense. So let's chalk up a 7-4 record. Monday Night Football against the Steelers. Still a lot of questions there for the quarterback as well. They lost Justin Fields. They did not bring back Russell Wilson. They're still hoping to get Aaron Rodgers. Currently, QB1 would be Kyle Rudolph. Let me get the Dolphins for a win here, especially if Tua is full and healthy at that point in the year. We are looking at that was 8, 9, no, 9 wins. 9 wins so far. Week 16, Cincinnati Bengals. Tough one. Both teams probably going to be making a playoff push. If we know the Bengals, they're going to surge late in the year and find a way to, really make everyone think that they're world beaters again like they did last year. Let's see. Hopefully the Bengals don't get off to a slow start like they've done in recent history. I'll give that one a loss. This 4-game stretch could really make or break the Dolphins season. Steelers, Bengals, Buccaneers, and Patriots. All these teams are teams who are vying for playoff spots more than likely by this point of year. Worst case scenario is all 4 of them. Best case is maybe the Bengals or the Steelers have kind of beat up on each other all year. And maybe the Patriots are not what I'm expecting them to be, which is a little bit better than they've been in years past and be actually competitive in the division. So let's say 2 of these 4 games are against, possible playoff contenders, and we need to win our way to get there. It's going to be tough. But, I do think we lose to the Bengals if they're in a playoff push. Tampa Bay, they're probably going to be in a playoff push, but it won't really matter because they're the NFC South. So let's get a win against Tampa Bay and get another win against the New England Patriots. So by that point, the Dolphins are 11-6. Let's see if they can get in the playoffs with that. But that's pretty much it for me. I'm pretty excited for this Dolphins season, and more so because there's expectation there, but there's also uncertainty, and we don't know what this team is going to be like on the field until we see them week 1. And that's pretty scary because in the last couple of years, we're like, all right, we know this team's going to be decent offensively pretty well. 2023, set the expectation pretty high for that following that season. So going into 2024, you're like, oh, shoot, this offense is going to be legit. And the defense looks pretty good. And they failed to meet expectations. Injuries happened. So those are things that definitely dissuade a fan from, being all in it all again. But, I know as the season comes around, I'll be super hyped and I'll pretty much be back on board with everything. So thank you guys so much for watching. Catch you in the next one. Peace.